Hey guys, I'm Urizi. This story is all about what if Naruto can use other people's memories. Sometimes a technique can lead to new discoveries, new paths. A chance discovery lets Naruto learn that which he was never taught, using the memories of others to aid his progress. Before we proceed with the story, please like and subscribe to this channel if you liked the video, and don't forget to check the description for the other works of the author if you liked the story. Let's start. Chapter 54, A Chunin and a Snake. Fu is so happy. The green-haired girl caroled as she sprang out of the concealed entrance and into the small clearing. Komei says she is happy too. Fu and Komei are so lucky to have met you. I'm glad to hear that. Naruto laughed as he and Hinata emerged from the den and leaned against each other while Fu danced around the clearing. Someone's enjoying freedom. Kakashi snarked as he remained leaning against the root that partially concealed the entrance to the den, and Naruto blinked. Kurama's just placed the scroll. Fu, the choice is yours. Fu blinked as she halted mid-dance. Still balanced on one foot, she turned to face Naruto. Fu doesn't understand. Surely you want Fu to go with you. We do, Hinata explained, but only if you want to come with us. You're free now. If you want to go elsewhere, we won't stop you. Fu frowned. But Fu has never been anywhere else before. Fu doesn't think she could make it anywhere else. Suien has a lot to answer for. Kakashi ground out. He didn't even give you basic training. Suien say that as long as Fu can tap Komei's power, that enough. Fu sighed. Komei has taught Fu a bit, but Fu not know how to do many things other people do. We'll be happy to teach you. Kakashi offered. If you want to. Actually, I think she's going elsewhere. A familiar voice purred, and Naruto gave the new arrival a shocked look even as Hinata activated her Byakugan. The one with the extra eyes is behind the tree next to him, and there are 4 others, 3 males and a female. One of the males is odd, he's almost like 2 people in one. I think that's enough. Orochimaru said as he stepped forwards, raising his sword. Now, the Nanabe's host is coming with us. Don't worry, Naruto, I'll return with the others and collect you later. I can't allow you to do that. Naruto stated, then his eyes widened as a crystalline sound echoed around them. Thank you, Gurren. Orochimaru smirked as the sky above was occluded by a climbing dome, turning the dawn sky into an interlocking barrier of triangles and hexagons. We've been working on this trick for a while now, using an old sword to test it. As long as the dome's up, your high ration is blocked and the dome's reinforced so it can't be broken. Fuck. Naruto whispered as his senses once again reported the absence of the hundreds of high ration beacons that he had adjusted to detecting. Not good. Orochimaru's smirk widened as 4 others joined him, one of whom was the Sharingan user that Naruto recognized from their previous encounter. The other 3 were a giant of a man with 6 arms, and one who looked like he had a second head protruding from the back of his neck. Well, this isn't good. Kakashi agreed, pulling his Hitai up to reveal his own Sharingan. The chakra flowing through that thing looks odd. I know I've seen something like, he's blocked the use of summons. Very good. Orochimaru congratulated him. I do so enjoy having intelligent enemies. It means you've lost most of your snake techniques as well. Kakashi countered, and Orochimaru shrugged as strange markings began to snake across the skin of the 3 unknowns. With my sound 4 helping me, that won't be a problem. He replied. Now, host of the Nanabe, you may as well come quietly or things will get violent. Fu stared at him and began edging towards the Konoha shinobi. Well, let's do this. Orochimaru said. Hell yeah. The 6-armed man gloated as he stepped forwards, the markings growing across his face like unfurling ferments. This'll be fun. Beating down the trash. The large one grunted, lines of triangles appearing on him. The red eye looks interesting. The 2-headed one mused, his thin lips spreading in a grin. Kidomaru, take the Hyuga. Jirobo, bash the blonde. Seikon, you have Hatake. Shin, grab the girl. The 4 moved forwards, then leapt aside as a barrage of rocks erupted from the den, followed by a white-haired figure. Jiraiya. Hello, Oro. Jiraiya growled at the gobsmacked Chunin. Let's see if I can repeat what Sensei did, but permanently. What? Toby shifted slightly and glanced at the plant man next to him. The Sanbi has dispersed. It'll be a while before it reforms. About 3 years, maybe 4. Damn. Pain muttered. We cannot hope to hold a single Jinchuriki key for that long, let alone all of the other 8, and the statue will not hold the essence without damage for that period either. We have to delay the plan until it reforms. Pass the word to the others. Until I recall them, they can pursue their own plans. Toby will do that. Toby is a good boy. From beside Pain, Konan watched the masked man warp away. I don't trust him, Nagato. She stated quietly. He is necessary. Leave it at that. Hinata spun and deflected the spray of oddly golden kunai that Kidomaru threw at her, deflecting them so that 2 of them hit Jirobo. Naruto took advantage of the larger man's brief distraction to summon a dozen clones, half of whom promptly attacked using Rasengans while the others moved to distract the other Soundnin. One of the clones was dispelled almost instantly by Orochimaru, who barely avoided the hair Senbon attack launched at him by Jiraiya. The Senbon flew past him and Seikon had to leap away from Kakashi in order to avoid being impaled on them, his move causing him to collide with Shin and preventing him from grabbing Fu. Naruto. Kakashi called and the real Naruto somersaulted to him, grabbed him, and then suddenly there were another half-dozen Sherry non-users. A second later, the number of Byakugan users also increased and 3 of them darted out of the clearing. Where are they off to? Jirobe shouted before pulling a stone slab up to block the incoming Rasengan barrage. Who cares? Orochimaru shouted back as his sword bounced off Jiraiya's defensive hair shield. Probably trying to find a way to break the, oh shit. Gurren. Why do they get to have all of the damned fun? Grumbled the woman with the spiky blue hair as she concentrated on maintaining the dome. I want to help kill Lord Orochimaru's enemies. Instead, I get guard duty. Why? Gurren. Orochimaru's warning echoed through the trees and Gurren looked round, then yelped and threw herself sideways to avoid the strike aimed at her chest. A second blow from behind deadened her left arm and she stumbled away from the wall of crystal as a third attacker emerged from behind one of the trees. The hell? She gasped, looking at the trio of identical girls, Byakugan blazing with determination. Surrender now. One of them demanded and Gurren laughed as she flexed the fingers of her right hand. Surrender? Why should I when I can Shoton, Shuriken Ranbyu? The sudden attack managed to dispel one of the attackers, but the other 2 dodged it, one by spinning behind a tree, which took the brunt of the wave of crystal projectiles, while the other kawaramied with a log, letting the wooden replacement take the piercing attack. Gurren shifted, the light refracting along her skin for an instant. It's just a matter of time before I kill the original you. She stated, looking round for any sign as to where the 2 remaining attackers had vanished. Make it easy on yourself. A brief flicker of motion caught her attention and an instant later, a long lance of crystal lanced out from her outthrust fist, ripping the tree that the movement had come from in half and sending the upper part crashing to the ground. As the lance shattered, Gurren took a couple of steps forwards and looked round, the light refracting off her once again. Where are you? In front of her, one of the girls stepped out, standing in a stance she had never seen before and Gurren raised her fist, then gasped in shock as a series of strikes shattered the crystal armor that she had layered over her skin, removing her ability to move in the same attack. As she fell, she spotted the girl who had defeated her standing exactly where the pierced log had been. Kawarami. She croaked in understanding. Damn. Kidomaru growled as he activated the second stage of his curse mark, covering himself with golden armor in an attempt to block the near-constant barrage of Gyuken strikes that had cost him the use of 4 of his arms. As he prepared to attack, something hit his armor, making it ring like a bell. Yes. One of Naruto's shouted in glee. Good to go. Originals to me. Kidomaru looked up, then threw himself sideways as a giant blade of crystal sliced into the ground where he had just been standing. A rumbling announced that Jiraiya had created a shelter against the sharp rain even as flashes of light refracted from the falling shards. Damn. Orochimaru grumbled as he watched the nearly transparent blades shred the vegetation outside the shelter. So close. Seikon, remind me to leave someone to protect Gurren the next time we use this strategy. Yes, Lord Orochimaru. The rain of shards petered out and Orochimaru nodded. Someone collect Gurren. He ordered as Kidomaru rose from the pile of crystal that had covered him. Well, this could have gone worse. Who are you and what have you done to our weapon? A new voice barked and Orochimaru looked at the newcomer. I don't have time for this. He grumbled as the blade of his sword lanced out, spearing the belligerent shinobi through the heart. Anyone know who that was? Dunno, but that's a cool bandana. Jiraiya grunted, pulling the greenish cloth from the corpse's head. Sir, I have her. Kidomaru called as he reappeared, Gurren slung over his shoulder and then he paused, his gaze fixed on something just behind Orochimaru. Toby wonders if this is a bad time. A young genin watched from behind a tree as the group that had killed his tutor vanished, then he headed back to Takigakuer. The elders needed to know that the roguenin Orochimaru had stolen Taki's living weapon. Erg. Naruto managed as he collapsed onto the settee. Good work, Naruto. Jiraiya congratulated him. Fu, welcome to Konoha. Once Naruto's recovered, I'm sure he'll try to teach you how to manifest Kome like he can manifest Kurama. As if the sentence had summoned him, Kurama appeared in a cloud of chakra smoke. Thanks. He said to Naruto, who murmured something indecipherable before closing his eyes. Hinata, could you? I got this. Kakashi said, carefully picking Naruto up and carrying him up the stairs, Hinata following him worriedly. He looks okay, but he made a lot of clones and jumped us all back. I think he just needs some rest. In the meantime, how about I introduce you to Tsunade? Jiraiya offered and Fu turned to look at him questioningly. She has been waiting to meet you and welcome you to Konoha. Fu wonders who this Tsunade is. She's my old teammate and now the Go-Daime Hokage. Jiraiya smiled. And I think you'll enjoy meeting her. Tsunade stood in the operating theater, the green chakra dissipating from around her hands as she finished her exam. You, done? The kunoichi on the table asked and Tsunade nodded. You have quite a bit of chakra scarring on your first two gates, something I've never actually seen before, but it shouldn't interfere with anything you do, so long as you don't try to open them. Other than that, nothing that some rest and good nutrition can't fix. The kunoichi gave a tired smile, then glanced to the side where the scroll that had held her during transit via one of Konoha's messenger hawks lay crumpled in the corner. Of course, we will need you to undergo a full debriefing, especially on how you managed to escape from sound. Tsunade continued. After that, if you want to join Konoha's forces, then we'll accept you. Not sure how strong I am. The kunoichi admitted. Used that demmed seal whenever things started getting dangerous. Without it. Tsunade nodded in understanding as Numbu materialized. After a brief, near-silent conversation, she turned back to the bedridden ninja. I need to go and meet another newcomer. She explained. Rest up, you'll need it. Don't worry, Ibiki's been told not to use the hostile interrogation techniques on you. Thank you. Hokage-sama. You are welcome. Tayuya. Chapter 55, A Chunin in the Snow. Interesting news. Jiraiya called as he almost danced through the door of Naruto's house, surprising the duo who were having breakfast while their various clones performed chores. Naruto, you're safe for several years. Naruto swallowed his mouthful of food even as he lifted an inquisitive eyebrow. You remember that the Mizukage couldn't attend the finals because she was recruiting a Jinchuriki back into their ranks. Jiraiya asked and Naruto nodded. Well, the other one, the former Mizukage Yagura, fled when his forces were destroyed. The Mist Shinobi found him and engaged him in combat, but he blew himself up. Probably accidentally, he tried to use a tidal wave while surrounded by lava. Both teens winced at the mental image. Anyway, the Sanba dispersed and is going to take several years to reform, and so according to my source, the Akatsuki have temporarily ceased their attempts to claim the Biju. Jiraiya finished. In the meantime, we can train you up to Jonin standards and, if there's enough time, maybe even turn you into a sage in a couple of years. A sage? Does that mean he'll become as perverted as you, Jiraiya-sama? Hinata asked innocently, causing Jiraiya's jaw to drop while Naruto fought down near hysterical laughter. For a long moment, Jiraiya stared speechlessly at Hinata, then he shook his head. I think you broke him, Hima-chan. Naruto commented as soon as he could trust himself not to burst out laughing. Hinata simply smiled demurely, then returned her attention to the cinnamon bun in her hands. Bulletin, wow. Jiraiya managed to pull himself back together. Wow, that was one heck of a, wow. Just wow. I never knew you had such a wicked sense of humor. Hinata gave him an innocent smile, causing him to roll his eyes. Hokage-sama. Danzo said with a slight bow as he limped into the office. You summoned me? I did. Tsunade said, leaning back in her chair as she looked at her sensei's old friend and rival. Before he and Team 10 left on their escort mission, Sensei informed me about your covert group, Root. Danzo paused. He allowed it as long as it did not act against Konoha. Tsunade continued, her voice icy. However, I'm not as trusting as Sensei, so I had Jiraiya do some spying for me. Danzo froze and Tsunade motioned for him to sit. Your training methods are designed to remove all emotion and turn your shinobi into tools. Tsunade stated, her voice colder than any Hayaton jutsu. However, this leaves your troops incapable of compensating should a mission go outside the parameters that they have prepared for. Koharu and Hamura actually fought during Orochimaru's attack on Konoha. Where were you? Danzo opened his mouth, then closed it as Tsunade fixed him with a harsh stare. The friendship you and Sensei had was the primary reason that he did not reign in your little foundation. Tsunade ground out. In addition, possessing a shinobi department that doesn't officially exist is a very powerful weapon if used correctly. The problem is, you have not been using it correctly, as the Omegakuer situation has amply demonstrated. Danzo blinked. Why the hell did you try to support the salamander? Especially after all the work Jiraiya put into his 3 students. Tsunade snarled, leaning forwards to transfix the suddenly nervous elder with a gimlet stare. For a long moment, the office was silent, then Tsunade slowly leaned back into the embrace of her chair. Since it is you who are responsible for the formation of the criminal group known as the Akatsuki thanks to your providing aid to Hanzo against their original leadership, I have decided that you will be stripped of your leadership of Root and reassigned to the archives. Before you protest, I have arranged for new leaders to take over and bring your puppets up to the standards of true shinobi of Konoha. Enter. Danzo couldn't form any words as the door behind him opened and 2 people who had once been his allies walked up to stand by his side. You summoned us, Hokage-sama. Koharu said calmly, ignoring the suddenly fuming Danzo. Kakashi. Kakashi paused in the middle of his exercises as Naruto flashed into existence. Jiji's tag just pulsed. He half shouted. Hinata is almost ready, my clones are rounding up reinforcements to follow. Kakashi blinked, then nodded. I'm ready now. One of my clones dispelled. Naruto said, grabbing Kakashi's shoulder. Hinata'll meet us there and, now. The duo vanished in a flash of light. Bugger. Naruto blinked in surprise. The heartfelt exclamation was not what he had expected upon making a high-ration jump into a high-risk environment. Neither was the lack of shouting, the absence of the clash of weapons or the oddly missing explosions denoting high-powered jutsus. Ah, Naruto. Hiruzen smiled as he emerged onto the deck of the ship where Naruto, Kakashi, and Hinata were looking round in confusion. It would seem that while checking his team's weapons, someone fumbled the kunai, literally. Yeah, sorry. Asuma sighed as he pulled the tri-blade kunai out of the deck, looking ruefully at the gouge it had made. I was testing its balance and, yeah. Hey, Hinata. Ino called as she raced across to give Hinata a hug. This is amazing, but watch out for Fujikaze Yuki, she's a great actress, but she's, yeah. Think Ami. Hinata stared at Ino. She's that bad. Ino nodded, then grinned. Hey, you gotta see the view from the crow's nest. Come on. Ino turned and ran to, then up the mast. A moment later, her voice echoed down. Iceberg to the right. I mean starboard. Aha. A new voice exclaimed. We can shoot one of the scenes there. Make for the iceberg. I've never seen a film being shot before. Hinata mused, then she looked at Naruto. What was with those clones? Just sending back an all clear. Naruto grinned. So, Fujikaze Yuki. I really enjoyed all 3 of her Princess Gale films. Hinata. Come on. Hinata looked up to where Ino was waving to her. Let's go. Naruto laughed. I wonder how far we'll be able to see and, oh. Guy-san just sent me a message via my clone. Guy. Hinata asked curiously. What does he want? So nice to meet more shinobi from Konoha. The elderly man who had been introduced as Asama Sandayu smiled as around them, the film crew were moving snow around, setting up cameras and positioning reflective sheets of metal to enhance the illumination. I must say, though, I wasn't expecting to host so many. Yosh. Guy grinned as he put down a giant reflector that 3 people had been struggling to move earlier. A chance to watch the creation of one of Fujikaze-sama's most youthful films. How could we say no? Plus, it is good training. Lee agreed. The 3 smaller figures standing beside Lee, clad in thick, albeit green, jumpsuits, hats, and gloves for warmth all nodded in agreement while behind them, Neji rolled his eyes and Sakura tried hard not to giggle. All right. Sandayu called as he looked approvingly at the setup. All not involved, behind that line, please. Cruise to your stations and someone smooth the snow. I've got that. Kakashi said, his hands flashing through a set of seals, then he thrust his hands forwards, unleashing a gentle breeze that caused the snow to rise slightly before falling down again, all footprints and traces of movement erased. Okay, silence on the set, shooting in 5. 4. 3. As the countdown went silent, Yuki seemed to change without moving a single muscle. One instant, she was a bitter, angry woman, then she was a forlorn but optimistic princess wading through the snow to meet a warrior who could help her regain her birthright. The actor who was playing the heroic Ronin sat cross-legged on a stone, which was actually fake. Naruto had helped to place it, meditating as Princess Gale approached. When she drew close, he opened his eyes and looked at her. Hinata leaned into Naruto's side as the scene played out with Princess Gale appealing to Hirukin's sense of honor and duty. After a while, Hirukin bowed to her and the duo started to walk back the way that Princess Gale had come. "Aye, cut!" Sandayu shouted, looking ecstatic. Yes. Nailed it. Perfect on the first take. Alright everyone, back to the boat. That's the former Hokage. The armored shinobi peering through a telescope at the distant group hissed. Even with our chakra armor, we'd be hard pushed to go up against him on his own, let alone with all those other ninja. Doto-sama won't like this. The lone kunoichi of the TRO murmured and the purple-haired man glanced at her before turning his attention back to the telescope. He'd like it even less if we went up against them and lost. He retorted. We're falling back. That seal you placed on top of their mast last night means that we won't lose them, but with any luck, Doto will be able to get a few more shinobi to help us. There's no way I'm going up against the god of shinobi, not without a lot of backup. You know that we were being watched, right? Shikamaru yawned after Guy and his students had been high-shined back to Konoha. The ship had set sail once more. 3 shinobi, 2 males, and a female. Hiruzen said from where he was carefully placing tobacco into his pipe. Their chakra signatures were unusual, they were using something to augment themselves. One of them placed a tracking seal on top of the main mast last night. I believe it was the kunoichi. Dad, why didn't you tell us this earlier? Asuma half complained as Hiruzen used a fire jutsu to light his pipe. I had one of Naruto's clones look at it while they were filming. Hiruzen continued, pulling a small tag out of his kunai pouch. He transferred it to this tag, meaning that we can make it seem like we're somewhere completely different whenever we want. It's a design I don't recognize, I'll have Jiraiya look at it later. Enai thrice. Shikamaru drawled. So, who do you think they were after? Fujikaze. Kakashi said firmly from where he was leaning against the mast, his uncovered eye scanning the horizon. Snow shinobi, what the hell was Sanjuya thinking? He's a former samurai, you know. Asuma mused, earning a surprised look from Kakashi. What? The way that he stands, that's the third stance of the sword of protection. Only samurai who spend most of their career as bodyguards know that stance on a reflex level, and he does. Kakashi cursed under his breath, causing everyone to look at him. I've just placed his accent, he's from Snow as well. What's the bet that he's trying to smuggle her in to spark a popular uprising? I think we need to have a talk with Sanjaya. Hiruzen grumbled as he stood up. Asuma, I'm taking control as Konoha's plenipotentiary. Understood, Jonin Sarutobi. Asuma replied. Koji, Aftrail. Ino, bow. Shikamaru, Crow's Nest. I need you watching out for anything odd. Naruto, leave a couple of clones here, then take this note back to Tsunade-sama and return with her reply. Kakashi said, scribbling a small note and rolling it up. Hinata, base of the mast, use your Byakugan to check we're not being shadowed. The 4 genin scrambled to take their designated posts as Naruto generated 2 clones before vanishing. Now, I think I need to talk to Yuki. Kakashi said. She owes me for saving her before. The mission to Snow you never talked about. Asuma asked and Kakashi nodded as they followed Hiruzen below decks. I see. Doto said in a surprisingly calm voice. This is irritating. The 3 shinobi shifted slightly under his gaze, but remained silent as they waited for their leader to continue. Although the return of my niece means that at last, I can find the treasure that my damned brother concealed before I killed him, having an army of shinobi with her means that she is obviously intending to sneak in under cover of being an actress and then striking at me. Perhaps, I need to launch the first strike. Doto rose from his throne and moved to the window that provided a good view of the valley beyond Kazuhana Castle's outer wall. Prepare the train to transport my forces from Yukigakure to the closest point to their expected landing point. He commanded. And tell my technicians to expedite the second airship. I want it completed and ready to launch by the time my niece makes landfall. As you command, Daimyo. The purple-haired shinobi said. Yes, as I command. Doto smirked, looking out of the window. As I command. Chapter 56, A Chunin and a Princess. Land ho. Land off the port bow. The lookout's call echoed down to the deck and Ino looked round with a frown. I don't see any land. She half complained. The higher up you go, the further you can see. Kakashi said from where he was lying on the side of the mast, reading one of his Icha-Icha books while simultaneously practicing his chakra control. You see, the whole world is a giant ball that pulls us onto its surface, so while it seems to be flat, it actually curves down in every direction. Didn't you cover that at the academy? Ino scowled at the Cyclopean Jonin, but refused to rise to his bait. So, what's the plan? Kakashi asked as Hiruzen walked past on his way to the prow for a better look. Naruto and myself will take Fujikaze back to Konoha. Hiruzen said, glancing back at his successor's student. Anko is good at disguise, we can hire her to act as Yuki's body double for a while. She'll pretend to be her until you get to the place where the filming is taking place, whereupon you can use the kunai to tell us it's safe, or that you've been clumsy, and we'll return with her. It'll also allow me to talk to Tsunade about reforming Team 7. She has some files she wants me to look at. Kakashi nodded slightly and returned his attention to the book. I have no idea how you can read that crap. Ino grumbled as Yuki emerged onto the deck and paused, her eyes fixed on Kakashi's novel. Is that Icha-Icha Traveler? She gasped and Kakashi stared at his empty hands while Asuma and his team gaped. But, how? Asuma gasped as Yuki started to read the interior of the book. It's signed by Jiraiya himself. She gushed as Kakashi dropped to the deck, looking somewhat gobsmacked. Wow. Kakashi sighed as he tapped her on the shoulder. If I arrange for you to get a full set signed by Jiraiya and a meeting with him, can I have my book back? Yuki blushed slightly as she relinquished the book back to its owner and Asuma shook his head. Just when you think you're starting to understand someone. He mourned. So, Yuki said as Naruto escorted her out of the Hokage Tower and into Konoha proper, this is Konoha. I'd expected, well, I don't really know what I expected, but, it doesn't really look ninja-ish. That's exactly how a ninja village should look. Naruto snarked, earning an eye roll from the older woman. According to Kasuke-senpai, Konoha is the most civilian-like village because we make use of the support structure that civilians can provide, thus freeing up a higher percentage of our military forces for missions and security. Places like Kumo have virtually no civilian support, so they need to devote quite a bit of their effort to things like construction, retail, food supply, weapons creation and maintenance, that sort of thing. Sounds a bit like filmmaking. Yuki said after a thoughtful pause. Most people never realize how much goes on behind the camera, finding places to shoot, assembling the sets, costume creation, script writing. Speaking of scripts, I hear you may be interested in one of mine. A new voice purred and Naruto half turned to see Jiraiya dropping into place by Yuki's side, the clone that had located him dispelling now that it was no longer needed. And you are? Yuki asked, causing Jiraiya to skip ahead and drop into a kabuki stance. I am the one that other men can only dream of being a pale reflection of, the man that all women want to be with. I am the writer of art and the purveyor of romance and excitement. I am the sage of the toads, the gallant Jiraiya. Pervy sage, meet Fujikaze Yuki, professional actress. Naruto sighed. Fujikaze-sama, this is Jiraiya of the Chunin, one of Hiruzen-sama's students and writer of the Ika Ika series of books. Yuki blinked, then smiled. Ah, so you're the one Kakashi-san was talking about when he said he could arrange for me to meet the author. Naruto sighed as Jiraiya puffed himself up. Of course. But surely someone as beautiful as yourself deserves a more mature guide to Konoha, someone who knows the best restaurants. As he spoke, his hands flashed through a series of umbu signs and Naruto nodded. Fujikaze-san, Jiraiya is one of the best shinobi in Konoha. You'll be safe with him. Thank you. Yuki said, placing her hand around Jiraiya's elbow. So, if we visit a bookstore first, can I get some autographed books? For a true fan, I keep first edition hardbacks and I'll happily dedicate them to you as I sign them. Jiraiya smiled as he started to lead Yuki away. Naruto, you go catch up with your fiancé, I'll use that kunai to call you if we need you. Naruto nodded, then reached out for a familiar tag and vanished. Back already? Asuma asked as Naruto appeared on the deck of the boat, just behind Hinata who half turned to smile at him before returning to the game of shogi that she was playing with Shikamaru. And where's Anko? She has to meet Fujikaze in order to be able to look like her, so I left several dozen clones behind to help her and transport her here when she's ready. Naruto said, watching as Hinata slid a tile forwards, causing Shikamaru to frown for a moment. Makes sense. Ino said from where she was polishing her kunai and shuriken. We're going to make landfall in about 4 hours, according to the helmsman, so she needs to be ready by then. Naruto made and popped a clone. Message sent. Asuma shook his head. You still have no clue how much you've changed things, have you? He marveled. Instant communication over any distance, reinforcements available in minutes rather than days. Do you have any idea how much that changes the entire strategic map of the elemental nations? Dad and I were discussing it just prior to this mission. Shikamaru commented as he slid a tile diagonally to block Hinata's impending assault. He pointed out that should Naruto be able to teach Hinata how to do the one-person version, that means that he'll be able to teach their children, or anyone else they choose to take into their family, as well, and before long, we'll have an entire clan of shinobi able to be virtually anywhere. The tactical and strategic advantages would put the combined capabilities of the Hyuga and the former Uchiha clans in the shade. On the negative side, it does mean that until he figures out a way to teach the one-person version, Naruto is going to be a priority target for those who don't want Konoha to be the strongest of the villages. Incidentally, was it my imagination, or was the flash of light dimmer when you appeared? Naruto blinked a couple of times at the unexpected question. I don't know. It could be that the flash is caused by leftover chakra. Shikamaru mused. Most times that too much chakra is used in a technique, it tends to manifest as chakra smoke or a flash of light. My chakra control's pretty good. Naruto half protested. The Hyuga clan allowed me to learn some of their techniques for chakra control. Asuma's cigarette landed on the deck as he gaped at Naruto and Hinata nodded in confirmation. Damn. Naruto sighed as he created half a dozen clones. I'm needed. Call me if you need me. An interesting team you have lined up for me. Tsunade-chan. Hiruzen said as he looked up from the trio of files. My Tokata Homura himself chose the boy for your team. Tsunade pointed out, leaning back in her chair and steepling her fingers. I'm certain that you still trust your former teammate when it comes to recognizing talent. I do still trust them, now that they have changed the path that they were following. Hiruzen replied calmly. That is, after all, why I suggested assigning them to run Eni instead of Danzo. How did he take it, anyway? Not very well. Tsunade chuckled. When I pointed out that Homura and Koharu had actually fought the Oto shinobi while he hid, thus making them far more trustworthy in my eyes, I thought he was about to have an embolism. They've given me a preliminary report and, camas above, some of the shit that the old Warhawk tried to pull, and less than half of it actually worked. The rest left Konoha in a worse position. Hiruzen nodded in agreement as he glanced at the files again. The second, I have no problems at all with, especially with the technique that she learned recently, but the third could be a problem. Her personality can be changed, but her current skill set. She is rather over-specialized. Tsunade agreed. Nevertheless, I think that you'll do just fine. All three are ready, when can you take them? Once the mission to Snow has concluded. Hiruzen replied. After all, you might need a plenipotentiary there to get some good deals on their technology. I have heard quite a few tales of what they have come up with. As have I. Tsunade agreed. As have I. This isn't going to work. Anko grumbled as she looked up at the taller woman. Oh, I can put some small platforms under my sandals to get the 3 inches needed, but that'll throw off the way I walk and the bodily proportions won't match either. Naruto coughed slightly and Anko looked at him. What? I may be able to help, if you trust me. Naruto offered. I'll need you to push some chakra into one of my techniques, however. Anko's face suddenly lit up in understanding. Sure thing. After Nai-chan told me about this skill of yours, I wondered what it would be like. Orochimaru fell off his throne, spasming in agony as his entire chakra system seemed to burn. Fortunately, no one else was in the room to see him slowly pull himself back onto his chair, his body twitching and shuddering with the after effects of whatever had struck at his very soul. A faint flicker of light was all that announced the appearance of Naruto and the person he was transporting as they appeared amidships on the top deck. Asuma lifted an inquisitive brow. I thought that you were bringing Anko, not Yuki-sama. The woman with Naruto sniffed and stalked towards the stern of the ship, every movement screaming affronted dignity, and Asuma watched her go, then caught Naruto's wide grin. That was Anko, wasn't it? Had to teach her my version of the henge. Naruto confirmed. Odd thing, though, when I cloned her, something odd happened. She didn't tell me what, but after learning the henge, she ran off to the Hokage Tower for some reason, clutching her shoulder. Asuma blinked. Her shoulder. I didn't get it either. Naruto shrugged as he walked over to where Shikamaru was resetting the shogi board. You win again, Shika. Shikamaru nodded and a puff of smoke heralded Kurama's appearance. Okay, let's do this. Kurama said as he flopped down opposite Shikamaru. I'll beat you this time. Port in sight. Ino called down from the top of the mast. Looks like we'll be landing in less than an hour. Asuma noted as he put his weapons away with quick, economical movements. You ready? Sir, the second ship is ready and the train reports that it's moving to the port now. Excellent. Doto gloated as he looked out of the window at the bustling building below. It is time for me to greet my errant niece, and reclaim the treasure that she had kept from me all these years. Turning, Doto stalked through the door, the trio of armored shinobi trailing him. Guards and functionaries stepped aside, bowing deeply, as he descended the main staircase, then he walked across the great hall even as the doors were opened for him. Pausing in the entrance, he smirked at the sight before him, 2 giant airships, their underslung cabins fully manned and with kunai launchers fixed into gimbals that let them swivel to unleash a rain of metallic death or be swung in for easy reloading. Prepare for departure. One of the officers called as Doto approached the larger of the 2 airships. Daimyo Kazehana is about to board. The smaller airship rose into an escort position as Doto walked up the gangplank. At the top, the captain bowed deeply. "Welcome aboard, Daimyo-sama. We are ready to depart on your command." Chapter 57, A Chunin attacked. The fenders squeaked slightly as sailors jumped onto the stone quay to wrap the hawsers around the posts provided for just that reason. Standing near the gap in the railings where the gangplank would be placed, Naruto glanced round curiously. "You know," he said slowly, "given the size of the harbor, I was expecting a larger town. It does look rather small." Kakashi agreed as he stepped up to stand beside Naruto with Anko, still disguised as Yuki, beside him. "Barely 50 houses, and one of those does it even qualify as a hotel? It looks like an inn with a couple of extra rooms slapped on." A couple of sailors bustled past and dropped the gangplank into the socket that held the upper end, the lower end bouncing onto the stone walkway below. Naruto glanced round, then vaulted the railing, landing by the bottom of the plank. A brief cloud of smoke later and a dozen Narutos were running towards the small town. "I don't currently see anything suspicious," Hinata said, the veins around her eyes bulging. "Odd, there's some metal. I'm not sure what they are. Lines of metal with chakra flowing through them, melting the snow covering them. It's like the poles of a ladder with really thick wooden rungs. Odd." Kakashi mused. "Naruto, can one of your clones take a closer look?" "Naruto." "Kakashi, what sort of birds are those?" Naruto asked, pointing to two small but growing dots. Kakashi raised his hitayate briefly, shook his head and took another look. "They're not birds," he said in disbelief. "They look like... I don't know what they look like. Floating lanterns with a boat underneath." "Cool," Naruto said, still squinting at the incoming dots. "You know, this gives them the high ground and if they drop exploding kunai from up there." "Oh, shit." Kakashi cursed. "Abandon ship. Now. I can always take them to Konoha." Naruto pointed out, only to go silent as Kakashi gave him a look. Behind them, the startled sailors and film crew moved with surprising discipline, hurling bags onto the quay and chivying Anko as Yuki down the gangplank. As she reached the bottom of the plank, Sandayu appeared. "Naruto!" he shouted. "Get Yuki-sama to Konoha. It's Doto and he's after her." "What's that?" Hinata called and everyone looked at the ridge above the town where a line of elongated carriages was slowing to a stop. For a moment, the carriages remained still, then the sides opened up to reveal shinobi stood behind odd contraptions. "Kunai launchers," Kakashi mused. "But larger than any I've seen before and the handles on the side." A metallic sound behind them caused them to look at the sailors and film crew who were opening the bags and donning samurai armor that they were taking out from them. "Oh hell!" Naruto groaned. "Please tell me they aren't going to try and attack the shinobi with the kunai launchers and high ground advantage." "Send them back, Naruto." Kakashi sighed as he pulled out a tri-blade kunai. "I'll plant this, then you and Hinata join me. See if Hiruzen wants to join in too, will you?" Naruto nodded and 50 clones formed in a cloud of smoke. Doto looked out from the wheelhouse of his aerial flagship as the boat erupted with activity even as the train pulled into position to wipe out the intruders with a single barrage. "Contact the train and remind them that I need the princess alive," he instructed. "As for the others, kill them and feed their bodies to the sharks." "As you command, Daimyo-sama." The radionin responded as he hunched over his equipment. A moment later, he looked up. "They're ready to open fire, my lord, and they report that the villagers have got out of their firing lines. And why should I care if a few stupid peasants get killed? The breed so fast that within a year or so, it'll be like none ever died." Doto scowled. "Prepare our weapons, we will open fire as soon as we are within range, tell the train to do the same." "The actress has been located, my lord," the lookout called, peering through the telescope. "She's being rushed to the town hall." "No, they've stopped." "Prepare the grappling claws and deployment ropes," Doto commanded. "All will bear witness to whom the rightful ruler of the land of snow is." "Within range, turning to clear port broadside," the helmsman said as the cabin tilted. "Firing," the weapons officer shouted. That is a lot of kunai. Naruto mused as the film crew who had been forming up to charge the train froze in shock, staring at the multiple waves of sharp metal arcing through the air at them. Interesting, they use boxes of kunai in those launchers and can switch them within 3 seconds. Kakashi said, his Sharingan eye spinning slightly as he used it to focus on the larger of the two airships. Evac them now. The clones that had been running behind the would-be liberators grabbed their targets and vanished, then Naruto placed his hands in a seal that Kakashi vaguely recognized. The portion of the kunai barrage headed for them suddenly changed course and clattered harmlessly almost 20 meters away. You've got better with those futon techniques. Kakashi congratulated the Chunin as a second wave of kunai curved away from them. It takes a bit of concentration, but Asuma-senpai was insistent it would help in large-scale combat. Naruto explained as a third wave of kunai wandered off target. He pointed out that with my skill set, I'm far more likely to be part of large-scale operations rather than small one-on-one missions where most of my skills wouldn't be all that usable. You are able to fill a startling number of support functions. Kakashi admitted, keeping an eye on the approaching airships. Any chance you could force those things to crash land? Sorry, Kakashi. Naruto apologized as once again the air around them shielded them. I've got the shielding technique down, but something like that? Sorry, I don't see how I could do that. It'd require me to learn how to use the air like it was part of me. I don't think I could do that, although given the presence of natural chakra, perhaps a sage could. Naruto broke off as a trio of shapes leapt out of the lead airship, gliding down towards them. That looks chakra armor, but if it is, it's far more advanced than the last time I was here. Kakashi stated. It does mean that most ninjutsu will be useless against them, as the armor absorbs external chakra. How much can it absorb? Naruto asked curiously. I mean, it has to have some sort of upper limit, right? There's a fourth armor user still on the lead airship. Kakashi said, his uncovered Sharingan spinning as he focused. I recognize him. Doto. The one who killed his brother in order to seize control of the land of snow. Well, that makes him a target. Naruto stated. Everyone got their tagged kunai. A round of nods was his answer as the rain of kunai stopped, giving the three airborne shinobi a chance to land in front of them. Naruto, put a clone beside Yuki and get her to the end of the key. It'll mean there'll be only one way to get to her, and we'll be in it. Kakashi said calmly. If any of these three manage to get past us, then use your technique to teleport her to Konoha. Until then, keep her protected so that the watching villagers can see how brave she is. It'll be useful for when she takes over. Naruto nodded as he created a clone and pretended to ignore Doto launching himself from the airship, diving and circling round to try and approach from behind. He had obviously been listening in on the radio and spotted the opening left in the plan. Just as Kakashi had predicted. So, if we get past, the clone removes the lost princess, The leading armored shinobi mused. How about a nice little competition, then? We win, and she never even thinks about returning. You can't win. Kakashi smirked as Hinata dropped into her Jiyuken stance and Naruto formed a Rasengan. Kakashi, their armor is creating a chakra shield over their entire bodies. Hinata called out and Kakashi's eyebrows rose. Interesting, that armor really is advanced. But how long can the shield last, and how much damage can it block? Why don't we find out? The leader smirked as he lunged forwards. Doto leveled off barely 6 feet above the ground as the arc of his journey placed the shacks that his subjects used as homes blocked him from his target's sight. A moment later, he was skimming over the waves, using the ship to cover his approach as he arced round, the chakra-infused wings of his armor giving him speed and agility that rivaled almost any bird. A last turn let him see his target and her protector from behind and he fired the kunai launcher on his left wrist. The one-shot launcher discharged, firing the kunai through the clone at almost the speed of sound, then he grabbed his errant niece and hurled himself into the air, her ineffectual struggles bouncing off his superior armor. This is Doto. He barked into the microphone on his collar. Open the landing bay and set course for the crystal lock, I have my niece and the key. My clone just popped. Naruto shouted as he ducked the attack launched at him, then he riposted with a wind blast that sent her spiraling into a nearby wall. As she picked herself up out of the rubble, Naruto hurled a kunai sideways, deflecting the flying gauntlet launched at Hinata by the largest of the trio. The gauntlet bounced off the ground before the cables attached to it reeled it back onto the giant's arm, just in time for him to use it to protect his face against a trio of Raiden-charged shuriken launched by Kakashi. "Take them down so we can move against Doto," Kakashi commanded as he grabbed the fist that had been aimed at his head, using the movement to hurl his adversary into a nearby snowdrift. Naruto started to nod, then launched a spinning kick that intercepted the armored Kunoichi's tackle, sending her to one side. Their armor's chakra shield flickers. Hinata called as she threw a senbon that pierced her adversary's ear, much to his horrified shock. It's only for a fraction of a second, but a fast enough one too could get through. Naruto delivered another chakra-enhanced spinning kick, mentally thanking Lee for all their sparring sessions that had allowed him to pick up quite a few high-powered taijutsu moves. Then he ducked the angered Kunoichi's return punch, rolling to one side. "Do you really think you can WIGLRK?" The clone that she'd failed to notice appearing behind her spun, placing his shoulders against her back as he pulled tight the ninja wire he had managed to loop around her neck, just above the line of the armor's collar. The woman clawed frantically at it, her fingers slowed by the effects of the chakra shield protecting her, and Naruto watched her eyes roll up as she went limp. "She's down." The clone released her, letting her drop onto the ground, and Naruto knelt to examine the armor. "Looks like latches here and here, so yes." The armor opened up and Naruto's clone grabbed the Kunoichi and vanished in a gyration to deposit her in one of the umbu cells set aside for just that purpose. Looking round, he sighed as Kakashi pulled his hand out of the torso of his own adversary. "You ruined his armor. We could have used that." Oops," Kakashi offered, totally unrepentant. Then he glanced at Hinata, who was standing above the screaming form of her own opponent. "What did you do to him, Hinata?" Naruto gasped and Hinata blushed slightly. He wasn't wearing a cup. Both Naruto and Kakashi flinched as they put her statement together with the single senbon still in her hand. "So," Kakashi said in an attempt to change the subject. "How long before Anko loses patience with Doto and summons us to put him out of her misery?" "About now." Naruto chuckled. "I'll leave some clones to seal the prisoners and the intact armor for delivery to Konoha." Chapter 58, A Chunin Triumphant. "Both captives, and corpse, sent back to Konoha," Naruto said. Predictably, Kakashi didn't even bother to look embarrassed over the fact that he was the only one who had killed his adversary rather than capturing them for Ibiki to question. "Team 10 ready for action," Asuma stated from where he and his trio of genin had been waiting after Naruto had brought them back from Konoha. "What's the plan?" "We don't know much beyond the fact that Anko's in a room on that airship thing," Kakashi said, pointing at the distant speck just above the horizon. "I'd suggest 2 waves. Team Hyration first, then your team brought in by Naruto's clones in order to help secure the airship." "Yeah, makes sense," Asuma agreed. "We're primarily a capture team with a secondary of defense, great for backup, not so great for taking down large numbers of enemies." "By the way, how's Yuki-san?" Naruto asked. "I think she's about to marry that lek Jiraiya or something," Ino grumbled. "She's always on his arm and laughing at his stories." Hinata and Naruto exchanged horrified looks. "I thought that Pervy Sage's boasts were just boasts." Naruto breathed. "It's not like that," Asuma sighed. "Jiraiya's been assigned as her protector while in Konoha and several of our other shinobi are helping. Heck, Ino's dad's giving her some covert therapy. With luck, we'll be able to persuade her to accept a couple of advisors when she claims the throne of snow, giving us another ally. Given what lies ahead of us, the more allies we get, the better." Naruto nodded in agreement, as did Hinata and Kakashi, then Naruto twitched. "That was another pulse." Hinata mused. "Naruto-kun, Kakashi-senpai, I think we should go, or Anko-san will become annoyed with us." "On it," Naruto declared, creating half a dozen clones who promptly took position beside the other shinobi. "Kakashi, do you want give the command?" "Actually, I think I'll follow your lead," Kakashi said with an eye smile. "Think of it as another test." Naruto gave him a flat look, then waved for the first 2 clones to get ready. "Aim to surround Anko in 5, 4, 3. Ha 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 ha. Doto laughed as he held the crystal necklace up so that it sparkled in the light. At last, the key to the treasure that my damned brother hid away, the treasure that will let me build an army to conquer the lesser nations, then the greater ones. Soon, I shall rule over an empire. I wasn't aware that this was a film. Yuki sneered from where she had been tied to a chair mounted in the center of the bridge. I mean, you have the whole villainous monologue down pat. Did you write it yourself, or did you get someone who actually had a brain to do it for you? Doto froze, his hand slowly descending as he turned to stare disbelievingly at his niece. You do realize that the only reason I'm keeping you alive is in case your father encoded the lock to your chakra, right? He asked, and Yuki tossed her head defiantly. Ha! You really think that you'll be able to get whatever you're after? She scoffed. By now, those 3 idiots you sent down have been defeated and you are about to join them. Doto blinked several times, trying to work out why she wasn't reacting like he had expected her to. Your plan is ill thought out and makes no allowance for things going wrong. Yuki continued. Things like unexpected shinobi, for instance. A trio of people suddenly materialized around Yuki, dropping into defensive stances. About time. Yuki said as she was suddenly engulfed in smoke. What kept you? Doto's eyes widened as Yuki was replaced by a female shinobi wearing little more than a skirt and coat with fishnet mail, a shinobi who shed the ropes binding her as easily as if they hadn't been tied in the first place. Guards. Doto screamed and the hatch at the back of the bridge opened, revealing a dozen of his soldiers. Kill the intruders. Another 4 shinobi appeared and the oldest of the newcomers pointed at Doto. You 3 capture him, we'll take the others down. Hinata, bridge crew. Doto raised his hands to begin making the signs that would unleash a smaller version of his main attack, only for his arms to freeze. Heh, looks like chakra armor doesn't block my shadow bind. The teenage boy with the pineapple hairstyle smirked as the other shinobi tore into his guardsman. I was worried that this would be troublesome. Koji, thunderclap him. Doto strained to escape as the second boy stood before him, his arms spread out, then Koji swung his arms forwards and Doto found himself turning so that the suddenly large hands slammed into him from the front and rear at once, leaving him feeling as if a pair of barn doors had hit him. A sparking from his chest plate indicated that the impact had shorted out his chakra shield, then the girl spoke, her hands forming a hand seal he'd never seen before. Shinten Shin no Jutsu. Naruto lunged forwards, his hands flickering as he used everything Tenten had taught him to send a barrage of shuriken screaming into the room filled with Doto's thugs. Although the shuriken were too small to deliver any fatal injuries to the armored warriors, the ricochets and resulting cuts caused almost half of them to flinch, stumble, and even fall, hampering the attacks of the other guards. One guard managed to lunge forwards and Naruto delivered a chakra-infused tree-felling punch that sent him hurtling to the rear to the guard room. Kakashi and Asuma accelerated past Naruto and plowed through the first rank without even slowing, Asuma's blades seeming to ripple due to the futon chakra layered over them while Kakashi's kunai sparked with Raiden chakra, glowing trails briefly showing the arcs and slashes that he used against his targets. Within seconds, all of the guards were down, crippled or unconscious. Wow! Hinata said quietly as the last member of the bridge crew collapsed by her feet. I've never seen someone attack like that before, wow. Doto captured. Koji announced and everyone turned to see Doto, his armor removed, writhing and skirming as he tried to escape the ropes that held him captive, his threats and shouts muffled by the gag in his mouth. Nice work. Asuma said as he sent a pulse of futon chakra down his knives to clean the blood off them before returning them to their concealed holsters. Now, what do we do about the other airship? They won't know that anything's happened. Naruto stated. If they find out, I can throw a kunai across and use that to jump. Troublesome. Shikamaru sighed as he examined the controls, ignoring the groaning pilot slumped to one side. So, where are we headed? Naruto, send the survivors to Ibiki. Kakashi commanded. And bring back Yuki and Jiraiya. Hi. Over there, that valley. Yuki, or as she now agreed to be called, Princess Koyuk, said, pointing to an otherwise unremarkable dip between 2 of the lower mountains that surrounded Keiji Yako, the capital city, and primary locus of manufacturing, of the land of snow. It'll be interesting to see what this treasure is. Jiraiya said from where he was sat at a portable desk, his pen darting over several pages as he worked on turning one of his books into script form, Sandae standing just behind him and occasionally offering advice on word choice and how things would appear through a camera. Princess. I don't know. Kuyuk said with a helpless shrug. Father said that it would end the eternal grip of winter, but he never went into details. Not even the teams he commanded knew what he was up to. I only managed to rescue Koyuk from her uncle's forces because of their sacrifice. Kakashi said from his perch by the window. The engineers covered our escape, quite explosively. I remember the explosions. Koyuk confirmed in a whisper. Once I've taken my throne, I'll have a monument built for them. A long silence settled over the shinobi on the bridge, only for it to be broken by an unexpected source. You know, I don't think I've ever been here before. Kurama mused as he looked out of the floor-to-ceiling glass wall at the slowly scrolling landscape below. Over 4 centuries of running around avoiding people, and it never once occurred to me that simply by snuggling down in a snowy valley, I could stay hidden. I have no clue what to say about that. Kakashi admitted. Altering course, starting our descent. Shikamaru said from his position behind the control wheel. Sensei, can we get one of these? It beats walking, hands down. Sorry, but it's a bit too obvious. Asuma sighed. We need stealth for capturing our enemies, and this thing can be seen coming from miles away. Shikamaru sighed and turned his attention back to the control levers. The airship came to rest with only one bump, and Shikamaru nodded in satisfaction as he slowly shut down the engines. The other ship is landing behind us. Hinata said, the veins around her eyes bulging as she observed the other craft. Only 20 people on board, most of them still putting the final bits in place. Uncle deployed an airship while it was still under construction. Koyuk gasped in horrified shock. What was he thinking? I'll head over and deploy clones to take them down. Naruto said as he transformed to look like the now in captivity Doto. I'll leave a couple of clones to bring reinforcements over. Sorry, Shika, but I think Hinata and Kakashi are best for this. Recon and assassination. Asuma nodded. Once they've landed, I'll escort Koyuk-sama to the place her father told her to put her necklace before. Asuma trailed off rather than talk about the assassination of the previous daimyo of Snow, earning a grateful look from Koyuk. I'll go with you. Kurama said as he trotted across from the windows. I'm sensing odd chakra around here and I want to see what it is. Then we have a plan. Naruto said as he strode out of the hatch and stepped down to the ground. Be careful. Hinata called after him and Naruto waved at her before concentrating on projecting the air of arrogant entitlement that Doto had displayed right up to the point where he had been overpowered. As he walked towards the airship that was touching down, he put a slight scowl on his face. The expression worked and the outer hatch was snatched open even before he had arrived at the bottom of the 3 steps leading up to it. Lord Doto. The captain saluted. What are your orders? Naruto raised his hands and suddenly the cabin was filled with duplicates who moved almost instantly, taking down the crew before they could do more than start gawking. An instant later, Kakashi and Hinata were beside him, looking round. You could have left some for us. Kakashi half-joked as the last crew member was tied up. Well, let's scroll them up and send them to Konoha. Actually, I have a better idea. Naruto interrupted. Remember where Gato's men were put back in Wave? The quarry. Kakashi agreed. Do you think that they'll let us use it for that again? I'm already asking. Naruto countered. Yep. Tajuna says to go for it. Cheeky bastards threatening to charge it as a C rank since these guys'll need guards to keep them from running off. Tell him we'll knock a high D rank off the reparations owed and then send a message to the outpost to get them to provide the guards until someone can sort out those merely following orders from those who actively supported Danzo. Kakashi decided. Oh, and send a clone to Tsunade to let her know my decision. Already on it. Naruto laughed, then he blinked. Wasn't it all snowy out there a moment ago? What the hell? Kakashi asked in shock. Climate generators. Asuma said as the trio jogged towards him, glancing round at the giant slabs of faintly glowing mirror rock arranged around the central crystal pillar. Sanjuya was kind enough to explain it to us. Thanks for letting us use 2 of your clones to retrieve him. By the way, it turns out that he was assigned to protect the project manager in addition to his other duties. The generator creates a bubble which warms things up inside it, allowing for more crops to be planted and so on. Apparently it's based on an old Uzumaki design. Like the one that Kono Kakashi started before cutting himself off. Oh, right. While you're probably cleared for that info, Naruto, I'm afraid that you aren't, Hinata. Sorry. Hey guys. Shikamaru called from where he and his teammates were standing guard over Koyuki and Sandeu. The report for this mission is going to be very troublesome. Chapter 59, A New Team 7. Tayuya looked up as 3 people entered the clearing where she was sat. Rising to her feet, her eyes widened as she recognized the leader. Dressed in a black Jonin uniform with an undersuit of mesh armor and a metal gauntlet was Sarutobi Hiruzen, with 2 genin following him, a green-haired white-clad girl being orbited by an odd bug of a sort that she'd never encountered before and a pale-skinned dark-haired boy who wore a trousers and a shirt that left his stomach exposed. Ah, Tayuya. Hiruzen smiled. How did your induction go? Okay. Tayuya muttered, remembering the odd feeling of the loyalty genjutsu that Ibiki and the red-eyed Jonin had implanted in her mind. Excellent. Hiruzen smiled as he motioned for her to sit back down on the log. As the other 2 sat down next to her, Hiruzen produced a camp stool and unfolded it before sitting down. So, good morning, team. He smiled. Just so you know, you are the new Team 7 and the second Team 7 that I have been the sensei of. Now, let us introduce ourselves. I'll demonstrate. I am Jonin Sarutobi Hiruzen, formerly the Sandaime Hokage. I have a wide range of skills including the monkey contract and I taught the Chunin, although Orochimaru was my greatest failure. My likes are learning new things, teaching, and calligraphy. I dislike those who try to harm the innocent or those I protect and my dream is to ensure the will of fire is spread to all shinobi. Tayuya stared in shock at the old man, his benevolent smile totally at odds with her memory of how he looked destroying Orochimaru in combat. Fu next. Fu is Genin Aburame Fu of Konoha. Fu knows strong moves, but is weak in basics, but Fu is ready to learn. Fu likes Kome, Naruto, Hinata, Fu's new family and all of Konoha. Fu not really like Takigakuer. Fu's dream already true, Fu has friends and can make more. Tayuya blinked several times at the younger girl's enthusiasm, then stared as the giant bug spoke in a buzzing voice. Kome is friend of Fu and lucky to know her. Kome helps make Fu strong. Kome likes Fu, older brother Kurama and Fu's new family and friends. Thank you, Kome. Hiruzen said as Kome settled on Fu's back, claws digging slightly into her padded jacket for purchase. I am Sai. The boy said almost tonelessly. I have been trained to be a strong shinobi and follow orders. I have no real likes or dislikes, neither do I have any dreams. I'll see what I can do to help you with that. Hiruzen said with a slight frown. I'm Tayuya. Tayuya said after she realized that everyone was watching her. I specialize in long-range genjutsu and attacks by summoned entities I control with my flute. I don't know what I like anymore, but I hate Orochimaru for what he and his pet rat Kabuto did to me. My dream is to see him dead, again. We'll have to expand your repertoire of moves and find you a hobby. Hiruzen mused. All right. All of you are, please don't misunderstand me, broken to a degree. Fu, you're the least broken, but how Daki treated you has left scars, scars which I hope will fade in time, especially now that you can manifest Kome thanks to Naruto's help. Sai, your root training has left you woefully incapable of understanding emotion. You will undergo therapy to undo some of the damage. Other than that, only time will heal you. Tayuya. I know. Tayuya sighed. I'm bloodthirsty, don't really trust anyone, rely too much on my flute and without my curse seal, I'm far weaker than I used to be. But you understand yourself. Hiruzen said approvingly. After our training and testing is over, I've asked another former Soundnin, Chuchi-kin, to show you around Konoha. Wait, Kin's the one that Scary-san was talking about. Tayuya gasped and Hiruzen chuckled. Scary-san. I wonder if Ibiki knows you call him that. Wow. Tayuya mused. Kin's still alive? How? You look like you were training with Gai-san. Tayuya cracked open an eyelid to see Chuchi Kin smirking at her with amusement. Gai. Taijutsu master. Kin supplied as she dropped down to sit beside the prone Kunoichi. Wears a green spandex unitard, has an apprentice named Lee who looks like a smaller version of him. If you hear them starting to shout each other's names, look away as quickly as you can, otherwise it'll scar you even more than anything the Hebai team did. Tayuya opened her other eye so that she could give Kin a disbelieving look. I'm serious. Kin stated. The others call it the sunset genjutsu, although I once heard Asuma-san call it the excessively youthful manhug. Tayuya's disbelieving look intensified. So? Kin said as she knelt down by Tayuya's side. I heard they rebuilt Team 7 in order to take you in. You should be honored. Too tired. Tayuya moaned. Chakra exercises, new taijutsu style, so much to learn. I felt the same way. Kin nodded. I adapted. The training here's different. No scrambling for your life as people who want to take your position try to kill you, no constantly sucking up to those stronger than you in the hope they'll slip up and show you something you can use to try and get stronger yourself. Nope, here, we learn from those who want to teach us and help us grow stronger. Of course, once again, you end up with a better teacher. I didn't hear you complaining earlier. A new voice laughed and Tayuya managed to lever herself into a sitting position despite her aching muscles. Hello, I'm Jonin Ui Kurenai, Kin's sensei. She's cool. Kin grinned, then she scowled. Although she seems to be affecting me. I've laughed more since joining than I have in my entire life up to that point. That just means you're getting used to actually living. Kurenai countered as she pulled Tayuya to her feet and slung one of Tayuya's arms over her shoulder. Speaking of, I sent my friend Anko to round up the girls and, oh, come on, Kin. She isn't that bad. Kin looked up from her shivering crouch. She is. Kin. Kin sighed and slowly walked towards Kurenai and Tayuya. Fine. So, what did you have planned? Not sure I can do it. Tayuya groaned. So, tired, need to relax. This is so relaxing. Tayuya moaned as she floated in the warm water. I had to be pulled out the first time I came here. Kin reminisced, causing Ino to giggle in memory. So, taught by the professor himself. Anko said from across the pool. Lucky girl. All I got was the snake bastard. Kurenai placed a hand on Anko's shoulder as Tayuya shrugged. Yeah, I get the one who's killed Rochai once. Damn bastard had Kabuto use me to bring him back, though. How did you escape, though? Anko asked curiously. I mean, it must have been quite a journey for you and Nai-chan mentioned that your chakra control was still iffy. I recovered in time to avoid being thrown into the gladiator pits by the regular patrol. Tayuya said, her voice dark with memory. I made my way to the medical halls, but when I got there, I overheard Kabuto talking about dissecting me to see what effects the curse seal had caused on me. I managed to sneak out and almost literally stumbled across a Konoha border patrol. I had them shove me in a prisoner scroll and send me here by messenger hawk. Why the hell didn't we ever think of doing that? Anko groaned, slapping her forehead. What a way to get the wounded off the field and to the hospital. I wondered where that idea came from. Kurenai admitted, causing Anko to look at her curiously. You haven't checked the Jonin board yet? The techniques mentioned in the new tactics section. I've been busy. Anko protested. Jonin board? Kin queried. Is there a Genin board? Yes, but generally your Jonin sensei makes sure you know everything you need to know. Kurenai said. The board, well, room/archive actually, is mainly for independent Genin. Like Naruto-kun before he was promoted. Hinata supplied. I wonder if I qualify as an independent Genin now. With all the training you've done and the mission you just completed, I think you'll be in line for a promotion to Chunin before long. Kurenai replied. Tayuya glanced at the Hyuga girl, then looked up to where Konoha was perched on the fence surrounding the pool. I never got to ask. She began. Konoha, summons. It's complicated. Hinata said after a long look at the half-asleep giant bug. But, yes, I think that the term summon can be applied. Konoha helped by Gamamaru. Fu chirped from where she was floating just by the small waterfall that fed the hot pool. Konoha is Fu's first friend and, glub glub. Fu broke off as she drifted under the cascading water, emerging spluttering and coughing as Ino swam across to check on her. Fu is alright. Fu stated as Ino helped her rewrap the towel covering her hair. Summons. Heh, explains a lot. Tayuya mused as she looked once again at Konoha. A snake made of ink slithered into the bushes and an instant later, the bushes ahead of them rippled as a barrage of blunted shuriken were fired out of them. And I thought that Kidomaru was good at traps. Tayuya said in awe as the three genin began slowly advancing towards the next safe square which was barely visible along the path. This is only Ino's course. Fu grinned as above them, Konoha fluttered between the branches, scanning for the other traps that they knew were almost certainly there. Fu has heard terrifying stories about courses that Naruto built. Sai leapt into the air, his tanto flashing and Fu tumbled back down to the ground, a severed noose trap around her right foot. Fu not like snares. The Jinchuriki grumbled and Tayuya nodded in agreement, having had the annoying experience of being dangled upside down near the start of the course. Sai, she said, how come you haven't been caught in a single trap yet? My training included instruction in the setting, detection, and disarming of traps. Sai replied emotionlessly. Great. Fu chirped. Sai can warn us where traps are and we can learn from him how to spot them. Sai blinked a couple of times, then gave a fractional nod. 3 paces ahead of us is a tripwire. He stated and both kunoichi froze, their eyes scanning the ground. I don't see it. Tayuya finally admitted and Sai dropped to one knee, carefully moving a solitary leaf to show the gleam of metal underneath. How? The leaves on the path did not match the trees that were on the side of the path. Sai droned. So someone moved them simply to cover the wire. Tayuya realized. Wow, Ino's sneaky. Good morning, team. Good morning, sensei/morning/Hokage-sama. Sai. Hiruzen began, then he sighed. Never mind. Anyway, I know it's been only a fortnight, but you have made enough progress to begin performing missions. Now, the missions themselves may seem pointless, but they double as training in the skills you will need in your careers. For instance, the infamous Tora mission provides training in tracking, interception, non-lethal capture and keeping a prisoner from escaping. Cleaning one of the parks can provide excellent training in stealth, as you don't want the civilians to see you, as well as observation skills meaning you will learn to spot things, no matter how well concealed. Gardening helps you to learn different types of herbs which can be a lifesaver on missions outside Konoha. Fu thinks she gets it. Fu said with a firm nod. All missions are training. No, but you can include training in all your missions. Hiruzen gently corrected. Now, as we head for the mission room, what other missions can you think of and how would they count as training? Babysitting, bodyguard duties. Tayuya said after a thoughtful silence. Shopping. Identifying targets and making sure that the costs aren't too high. Fu said excitedly. Dog walking. Chakra control to prevent yourself being pulled off your feet as well as physical workout. Sai supplied, earning surprised looks from his teammates at the fact that he had actually volunteered information without direct orders. Excellent, you get the idea. Hiruzen smiled at them. Well, let's see what mission awaits us. Fu grinned happily as they approached the tower and Tayuya found herself smiling as well. Being part of a proper team was the best thing she had ever experienced. Chapter 60, a Chunin promotion. I'm what? Naruto gaped and on the other side of the desk, Tsunade smirked at him. You heard me, you're now a Takubutsu Jonin, primarily because of your high-ration ability. Same reason for Hinata becoming a Chunin. Of course, this is where things get harsh. I'm a Chunin. Hinata whispered. I actually beat Neji in something. Naruto blinked, then half turned as the door behind them opened to reveal a familiar figure. Pervy sage. Brat. Jiraiya Mox scowled as he walked into the room, followed by several others. You told him yet, Hime? Just getting to it. Pervy sage. Tsunade shot back. Naruto, you are a priority target for the Akatsuki. So is Fu, but her assignment means that she is as safe as she can be while still remaining on active duty. You, however, need to up your game. You have high ration, but there's at least 2 counters that we know of. You have the Rasengan, but it's apparently still incomplete. Your other skills are good, but need to get better. Jiraiya. For the next 2 or 3 years, we'll be training you until you surpass us all. Jiraiya said, motioning to the other Jonin who had accompanied him. Guy will work with you on your taijutsu skills. Kakashi your ninjutsu. Kurenai has volunteered to help you with your weakness to genjutsu while Yojao will be aiding with your kenjutsu. I'll help with your general fighting but not your fuinjutsu. Naruto blinked. What? Why? The Great Toad Sage has decided that he's teaching you the way of seals. Jiraiya admitted. Said something about keeping an eye on something he discovered when he helped you. I know Hinata's been helping you with reading and writing, but you probably need to make sure your calligraphy is up to scratch before taking the first lesson. Naruto nodded in shock. Cheer up. Jiraiya laughed, slapping the shocked special Jonin on his shoulder. You should be honored, we'll all be using your little trick to make damn sure that you learn it right. Although the real you will be needed for actual sparring, there is no trouble at all utilizing Kage-Bunshin for learning the katas. Guy explained, a wide grin spread across his face. I have been talking to your most youthful fiancé about how learning from both perspectives allowed you to rectify your literacy problems with astounding speed, and I believe that the same concept will be truly advantageous for the most youthful study ahead of you. Kurenai gave Guy a long, considering look. I know. Kakashi sighed. He does that. One moment, he's goofy Guy, then there's a sudden flash of insight that you're never quite sure about. That was not a very youthful thing to say, my eternal rival. Guy frowned. Sorry, did you say something? Why must you always be so hip and cool? Tsunade dropped her head into her hands. Who is Fusan being taught by? Hinata asked, then she frowned. Hiruzen-sama, correct? He mentioned something about getting a new team. It took a while to get the third, but yes. Tsunade nodded. Sensei doesn't idle very well, he has to be doing something. Giving him a genin team means he has a reason to keep going, the tough old coot. By the way, I'll be heading out soon, doing the rounds of my informants and sources. Jiraiya interjected. I'll take one of the kunai with me and I'll be summoning you every so often, either for training or because I want you to meet someone. Naruto nodded, then a familiar voice spoke. Since the others are aiding you, so shall I. Hinata. Ko shall help you to teach Naruto-san the etiquette and protocol needed to avoid causing a war should he meet a high-ranking official. Thank you, father. Hinata said with a slight bow while Naruto was sputtering denials and protests before an elbow to the ribs shut him up. What are you doing here, Hayashi? Jiraiya asked, turning to look at the Hyuga head curiously. I know that I didn't grab you. Hayashi managed to smirk without changing his expression in the slightest. I am the chief of the Hyuga clan and Hinata's father. Why would I not be here? Good point. Tsunade allowed as Jiraiya was still trying to come up with an answer. Hinata, although my duties as Hokage take up quite a bit of my time, I do have enough time to train you up as a medic. You won't be the only one. Guy has started Sakura on the path to becoming a combat Irionin and has asked for my input, so you can expect her to be attending the same classes. Understood, Hokage-sama. Hinata managed. Thank you. Don't thank me just yet. Tsunade said with a predatorial grin. I'll make you the best medic I can, or break you trying. I won't break, Hokage-sama. Hinata declared before blushing and moving slightly behind Naruto. Tsunade's grin widened. Excellent, that's the spirit. So, Jiraiya, what's the story about the Akatsuki? Tsunade asked after everyone else had left. Itachi sent me a note via one of my contacts, the owner of a sweet shop near Konoha's northern border. All that time he spent learning to fake his Pocky addiction had really paid off. Akatsuki has gone silent because the former Mizukage died in combat, dispersing the Sanbi. Until it reforms, they are simply going to keep tags on the locations of the Jinchuriki and Biju. Itachi LL send me a message when the Akatsuki decide to go active again. Tsunade nodded slowly. Speaking of Itachi, has he awakened his Mangekyo, like Sasuke? The night he slew the clan. Jiraiya confirmed. Old Senju records said something about the Uchiha getting stronger by switching eyes. Tsunade explained. I want to talk to Stote. He'll need a boost if he's going to back up Naruto once the Akatsuki resume their plan. As the sky darkened, Naruto and Hinata lay on a rug at the top of the Hokage monument, Kurama acting as their backrest as they watched the stars slowly appear. Chunin. Hinata repeated, her voice filled with wonder. I made Chunin before Neji. You deserved it. Naruto agreed. You realize that this opens up all the solo messenger missions for you, well, the ones the guard, Kakashi, and myself haven't claimed, anyway. The high ration does change things. Hinata agreed. I wonder, could it be used in doorways? Say, one door at home, the other in the Hyuga compound so I could go see Hanabi whenever I wanted, or she could come and visit us. I don't know. Naruto mused. Something like that, a form of stable high ration, connecting places. When I visit Mount Miyabuka for my lessons, I'll ask Gamadano. He's better at Fuinjutsu than anyone I've ever encountered, so if there is a way, he'll know it. He taught father. Kurama supplied. Father wouldn't have been able to seal his mother away in the moon if not for Gamamaru's lessons. Kurama, Hinata said after a long silence, is there any chance that you could tell us that tale? Sure. Kurama said with a slight twitch of his shoulders. But not just you. Tomorrow, I'll tell you both, your Hokage, anyone she deems important enough to listen to the story and, if she wants, Hanabi. Hanabi? Hinata asked curiously and Kurama dropped his head so his jaw was barely above the ground. She's the only one who grooms me better than you can. He muttered, causing Hinata to giggle. Changing the subject, Naruto declared, what do you want as your first proper Chunin mission? Meski relay to a beach. Hinata promptly declared, blushing slightly. Message relay, to a beach. Naruto repeated curiously and Hinata nodded. Why? You could join me and we could watch the waves together. Hinata explained as she wriggled slightly to snuggle against Naruto's side. Maybe go swimming. That would be nice. Naruto admitted. We could even build a sand castle. Hinata added. Or simply enjoy our flames of Youth. Both young teens jolted at the cry that echoed across the village, then Naruto started chuckling. Damn it, guy. He laughed. Way to kill the moment. I wonder if it counts as an assassination mission. Hinata wondered, causing Naruto to laugh harder. Danzo sat in the living room of his home, having been forced out of his normal office. Root, the organization that he'd built from the leavings of Umbu and shaped to be Konoha's blade was no longer his to control. Oh, he could trust Hamura and Koharu to use his weapon to aid Konoha's growth, but they wouldn't follow his scheme to topple the other villages and place Konoha at the apex, ruling over the entirety of the elemental nations. Danzo rubbed at the bandages over his transplanted eye, the one he had stolen from Shisui before his death. The technique he had used to persuade Itachi that killing the Uchiha had been the only way had still not recharged, or he would have used it on Tsunade to ensure that he retained control of his private army. Danzo leaned back, his brow furrowed. He was not yet out of the great game and so long as he still had his contacts, he could still attain his goal. He only needed to consider the possibilities. The condemned prisoner screamed in agony as the ash cloud condensed onto him, engulfing him, and reshaping until the prisoner's form was replaced with a new one, a black-haired man clad in red armor. Behind the man, a translucent demonic head opened its mouth and exhaled a stream of gas that flowed into the standing figure. A moment passed, then the man opened his eyes to reveal purple ripples. Magnificent. Orochimaru purred. A perfect fusion of the samsara of heavenly life and the Edo Tensei impure world resurrection, bringing one of the greatest shinobi ever back to life. And it was your work that made it possible. Pain confirmed as he stepped past the snake Sunin before bowing to the new arrival. Greetings, Madara. Welcome back. Madara looked round, then down at himself, his eyes shifting between the rippled Rinnegan and the tri-barred red of his eternal Mangekyo. Incredible. He breathed. I am as strong as I was in my prime, if not stronger. Beside him, a spiky plant emerged from the ground, then the top split open to reveal the bicolored form of Zetsu. Welcome back, Madara. The plan has hit a delay, but now you are here, things can be sorted out. Madara's gaze snapped to the inhuman figure. Tell me. The Sanbi has been dispersed. It will be 3 years or so before it reforms. I see. Madara mused. 3 years. What are our resources? All of Omegakuer and Otogakuer. Pain said, catching Madara's attention. Welcome to the Akatsuki, Madara. Together, we shall bring a new age of peace to the world. Well, that's another day over with. Naruto sighed as he appeared in the middle of his living room, then he paused at an odd noise outside. Moving quietly, he crept to the door, motioning for the clones who had paused in their chores to keep working in order to avoid alerting whoever, or whatever, was outside. Drawing a kunai, he flung the door open even as he used the Hiration to teleport to the tag he'd placed at the point where the path from his house entered the woods, dropping into a defensive stance as he checked the front of his house for whatever had made the noise. A moment later, his gaze settled on a piece of cord attached between the front door and the window, a cord which had a piece of wood suspended from it, as well as a paper fan that caught the breeze and caused the wood to bump against the wall. Odd. He mused. That's obviously meant as a distraction, but for what? Returning the kunai to his pouch, he stepped forwards and had just enough time to curse. Yes. Ino celebrated as she looked through the telescope. At last. I got him. It cost me 108 lemons and a box of paper clips, but I finally got him. Naruto sighed as he looked down at the tattered remains of his uniform, then he looked round at the line of trees. Although he couldn't see her, he just knew that Ino was watching, so he tossed off a quick salute before teleporting back to his living room. While he could admire Ino's ability to finally get him in that trap, he would have revenge. Sasuke sneezed and looked round to see if it was someone nearby who was talking about him. When he didn't see anyone, he returned to his previous task of watching for the one man who could truly explain the events of that night and who could identify the true person he needed to exact vengeance upon, the man who Tsunade had ordered brought before her once he arrived. Then a voice full of regret and sadness spoke from behind him. Hello, little brother. Hello, big brother. That's it for part 8. Thank you for watching and see you on the next video.